Hello! So this evening we are going to have a bit of fun looking through the darker corners of the flight management computer of the PMDG Boeing 777 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now it's worth pointing out that a lot of the things we're going to look at apply to the Boeing 737 FMC as well. So I've written up documents. I'll put some links in the notes of the video for you to go and find the documents that I've written up. So the document now runs to 15 pages, which is fun, showing you all the various different features and functions that I'm going to run through showing you during this flight. And I'm going to skip from thing to thing, so it's not going to make tremendously much sense, or too much sense I should say, during the flight. You can see the last thing I've done with configuring the airplane, or the last thing I haven't done, is configured the flight management computer. So we're going to go and do that. So if I go and press Control and 3, we come over and we've got the default view of the FMC in the 777. You can see the first page you see is the ident page. So the first thing we're going to do is running through programming the initial flight plan into the FMC. But before we do that, I want to look at one more thing. So when you initially load any of the PMDG aircraft up, they typically are in a powered on state, and you might not want that because you might want it to come in cold and dark so you can configure things and have the fun of switching things on. So to do that, you need to go to the menu button, and then you can see PMDG setup at the bottom right, and there's two options: panel state load and startup state. So panel state load will load a state instantly. So if I was to select cold and dark, I'd lose all my engines running and everything. Everything would go cold and dark immediately. Yeah, and you notice there's 2 pages of these. So there's all sorts of different options. So you could have a hangared plane, where a lot of the switches that are in a ready-to-go state will be in the off position. So you really will have to run around the cockpit turning everything on. Okay, so if we go back to the menu button and the PMDG setup submenu, the one we're interested in to make the plane always load in a cold and dark state is the startup state. So if you press the soft key next to it, you get the same options, but when you select them now, it's not going to make any change right now. So you select the option you want and you execute it, and that becomes the startup state. So the next time we load this aeroplane into the sim, it will be cold and dark, for example. Okay, that was the first thing to cover. So coming back into the FMC, if we go to the FMC page, this is the first thing we see if we've not programmed a flight plan. We just see the versions of the databases, and enter an inertial position is asking us to do, and it's saying the nav data is out of date. So the first thing we do to enter that inertial position is go to pos init. So the next few minutes I'm going to walk through just programming a basic flight plan in. So the first thing we do is set our inertial position. That's what it wanted us to do. So we go next page, and you'll see there's an FMC position and a GPS position. We can pick up the GPS position by clicking on it, and it types it into the scratchpad. Okay, so you can type anything into the scratchpad. If we do that, we can type some D characters in, and we can press clear to delete each character one at a time. So you can type anything you like down here. It's called the scratchpad. So by selecting anything, it puts anything you select into the scratchpad. So then if we go previous page, notice because we were on page 1 of 3, we see this form again. If you see square boxes, that's a mandatory field. If you see hyphens, that's an optional field. So it wants an inertial position. So I go and press the soft key next to it, and what I had typed into the scratchpad has gone into that field and it's disappeared. Okay, so we've given it its inertial position. It wants the reference airport. So we are at Stansted, so that's Echo Golf Sierra Sierra is the ICAO code for Stansted. So we then click on the field, and what's in the scratchpad will go into the field. We don't have to enter a gate number. So then typically when you are setting up the flight plan in the FMC, the next thing to do will appear at the bottom right. So we'll click on route, and it's asking again for the origin and the destination now. So origin is where we're flying from, so that's Echo Golf Sierra Sierra for Stansted. And then the destination for this example will be Edinburgh, so Echo Golf Papa Hotel. And there we go. and we can tell it what runway we are leaving Stansted on. So we're going to leave it on runway 22. And we can put a flight number in, so 123. And we'll leave company route alone. That refers to if you have saved flight plan files in the correct format in a particular subfolder of your computer, where if you click on it, it will show you the contents of that folder. I don't want to do that. I'll cover that in a later video, and I may expand on the FMC quick reference document that I've linked to in the notes of this video to cover that and to cover SimBrief. I'm not covering SimBrief today in here. Okay, so once you have put those details in, you can click Activate and you can click Execute. Okay, so the next thing it wants us to do is go to Performance Initialization. So if we go to Performance, this is where we put all the numbers in about the weight of the aircraft. So I'd already filled it up with fuel. I'm not covering that in this video. So we're going to cruise at 36,000 feet. So we put that in as a flight level. So 360. So flight levels are in hundreds of feet. So 360 hundreds are 36,000. And notice it knows what that means. So if you type in anything in the correct sort of range, it thinks, oh, okay, you mean flight level there. You don't mean I'm going to fly at 360 feet. Okay, so cost index refers to a formula that governs how aggressively the aircraft can use its fuel. So obviously the lower the number, the lower the climb rates will be, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we put 100 in there. Normally you would get the cost index as the CI number from your operational flight plan. The PMDG aircraft have got very nice assistance in the FMC where it will calculate the zero fuel weight for you. So if I just click on it, it puts it in the scratch pad for me, and I click it again and it populates the field. So it's saying unable cruise altitude. We'll just ignore that for our purposes today. Reserves 1. I'm going to put 1 ton of reserve fuel in. The next thing it wants us to do is the thrust limit. So we can come in here. We're not going to change it. So this has got the kind of the factory default climb rates, but you can play with the climb rates. You can derate them, as they call it. So you can go for a more shallow climb rate on purpose to save some fuel if you wanted to. Okay, then you can go to takeoff. And we do need to put into here the flaps we're going to use for takeoff. So for the 777, I'm going to use 15 degrees of flaps for takeoff. So I key in 15 into the scratch pad and then click on the soft key next to flaps. And you can see now it has pre-calculated the rotate speeds for the runway. So you've got V1, VR and V2. So you've got reference numbers. To transfer them across, you just press the buttons next to each one and it gets bigger, meaning that you've actually, accepted those numbers. You've also got center of gravity, so you press it, it calculates it, press it again, and it works out the trim. The trim is electronic in the 777. You don't have to do anything to it yourself. So the elevators will be pre-trimmed, so when we reach rotate speed on the runway, the aeroplane will be in equilibrium. So the plane won't start ballooning up into the air all on its own. It will essentially be flying level at rotate speed without, reacting to what's happening around it. Okay, so that's our basic performance data done. Next thing we can go and do is you can also get to this, by the way, by clicking on init ref. We need to do departure and arrival, so we need to say how we are leaving Stansted, how we are arriving at Edinburgh. So click the DEP-R button. So you can see earlier on we had already keyed in runway 22 for Stansted, so that's already selected. But we can select a standard instrument departure, so that's a sequence of waypoints to leave Stansted by. So if we select the BKY5R standard instrument departure, we can get rid of that warning and we can execute that. And then we can go to the route, also we can go back to index, and then we can go into the arrivals for Edinburgh, and we can say we want to come in on ILS 24 and we want to do the AGPE1E standard terminal arrival route. So again, a sequence of waypoints on the way towards Edinburgh, and then the ILS 24 is actually another sequence of waypoints that takes you down towards the runway. And we can execute that. Okay, so then if we go and look in the legs page now, you can see there's lots and lots of legs already in here, and if we go next, you can see there's a discontinuity. So that's the end of the standard instrument departure, and then you've got all the way over to AGPED, the beginning of the standard terminal arrival route into Edinburgh. So the middle of the route, we've not told the aeroplane how to do it, so it's not going to guess. It's not going to guess we go straight from the SID to the star. It puts a discontinuity in, so you know it's not going to make up the route. We'll put a waypoint in the middle of the route just for a bit of fun to show you it. So if I key in TNT, which is the ICAO code for Trent for the VOR, and then I select in here, it gives me there's lots of TNTs around the world, and it's not going to presume which one we mean. So we can reference the longitude, latitude here. So I know it's the top one for Trent. So I can select that, and it will put it into the list. Notice it's now showing a modified route. But we've still got the discontinuity there. Notice because the putting Trent in pushed everything down from where we inserted it. So to pull this up over the top of the discontinuity, and this is one of the lessons that we're going to go through in a minute, we just select the waypoint below and put it into the scratch pad, and then we select where we want it to go instead. We want it to go the next line up. So select there, and everything shifted up. We're still on a modified route though, remember. So we could carry on looking through and making any changes. So we go next, there's another one. There's another discontinuity. So that's between the end of the star and the beginning of the approach to the runway. So again, there's a gap in the plan. It's not going to figure out what to do for us. So again, we can select the waypoint below and then select the line above where the discontinuity is, and it will pull it all up, and there's further modifications. And when we execute those changes, if we go and look back through, all of those discontinuities have now vanished. And if you go and look on the flight plan now, you've got a nice line showing the flight plan. Okay, so now we've got our basic route. If we want to do what's called a gross check of that route before we go and fly anywhere, what we can do is turn the navigation display mode to plan mode. You can see there's us on the airport, but it's centered on D221C, and you can see on the legs page it's the first leg of the route, D221C, and it's got a CTR marker. That means the center of the navigation display. So we can go and then press step, and the navigation display will scroll through with the CTR marker. So if I press it, and you'll see this change. Yeah, so it's centering one leg after another. And you can keep doing it and look all the way through your flight plan. And you can zoom in and out, so we'll go out to 40 miles range. So step, there's the Trent VOR, there's AGPED, there's Haven, there's Tartan. So you can see Tartan's right here. If we go next page, there's CI24, which is over here, so it actually rounds off before it gets there. But let's just have a look. If we go and put the waypoints in view on this display, I think we might have to zoom. Oh, it won't do it on the plan mode. I think it only does it on map mode. Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. But if we were to refer to a map, you could see the other waypoints. So if you did want to include other waypoints in your route, you could insert them. I'm going to show you how to do that in a few minutes. But anyway, this has got a gross check, just flicking through the steps, looking at your plan, and it all looks fine. Okay, so we can put this back onto map mode, which is the normal mode we would have it in. We'll take the waypoints back off, so it's nice and clean down here, and we'll be zoom in, ready for takeoff to a lower zoom rate. So we've looked there at the basics of programming the flight plan for takeoff. Okay, and if you look over here now, all of the warnings about things not being programmed in are done. So it's saying there is fuel in the center, so let's go and look at the fuel pumps up here. And we've got auto, oh, it's the hydraulics, sorry. Let's press Control 6. So fuel is over here, so we'll put the fuel on for the center tanks. So the pressure light should go out, and the warning goes out. If you get a checklist error, what you can do is press checklist over here. You can see it was already on. Press checklist, and the checklist will come up, and you can go through the various checklists, ticking everything that you've done. Okay. So I haven't put auto brake to RTO, look, and it's showing up. So if I go and put auto brake to RTO, it disappears and we're good to go. Checklist complete, and it's disappeared off of here. So we're going to concentrate on the FMC though. I'm going sideways already. So I'm actually sat here in the tarmac in the middle of the runway, or in the middle of the taxiway, to make this a bit quicker for you to see this happen. So the airplane's already configured. So we're going to taxi out to the runway and take off, and then we're going to work through doing some other things to the flight plan while we are flying along. So we'll just taxi out to the runway at Stansted. So if you want to see the top of the legs page, to see the next page, just press legs, and it will go straight to the top of the legs page for you. So we're going to be doing all sorts of horrible things to the flight plan while we're flying, just to show you what you can do, and that most of it only applies while you are in flight. We're going to have to actually leave the standard instrument departure for some of the options to switch on, but we'll do some other things along the way. So just before we take off, let's cover off some of those things. So we'll just sit the aeroplane here on the ground, or we're creeping forward, so let's go and put the parking brake on. So I'm going to go and run a little nav map just so I can show you what we're doing. I'll just pause for a second. Okay, so we're back recording again. So you can see in little nav map here, I'm the yellow aeroplane down on the edge of the airfield here at Stansted, waiting to go onto the runway very soon. If we go and look out at the flight plan, you can see our flight, the standard instrument departure, takes us out towards D357C, and then it heads off towards the Trent VOR. If I zoom out, you can see that. So there's Trent. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is how you can add a different waypoint into the existing flight plan. So we'll pick out this one over here called Bigley. Okay, so on the flight plan over here, I could say add Bigley to the flight plan, and it will just do it. So how do we do that in the aeroplane? Let's go and have a look at our legs page. And you can see here's our first few waypoints doing the standard instrument departure. So we're on page 1 of 3. If we go next page, there's D357C and there's Trent. So here's D357C, and Trent was way over that way. So we want to insert Bigley after D357C. So what we do is we key in BIGLI into the scratch pad, and we then, if I scoot sideways slightly, we select Trent, and it will push Trent down and put Bigley in between D357C and Trent. Okay, so I'll select the soft key next to Trent. So it's pushed it down, but again it's introduced discontinuity. In other words, the FMC says, okay, I don't know how you're going to get from Bigley to Trent. I'm not going to guess. So what we can do then is select Trent and then pull it back up over the top of the discontinuity, and everything moves up. And if we execute that, you'll be able to see that now on here. If we zoom out and show a longer range, we've now got D357C over to Bigley and then on towards Trent, which corresponds with what we're doing here. It's just viewing it from a different perspective. It's viewing it from the aircraft perspective rather than a north perspective. Okay. If you want to see that, you can go to plan mode. Yeah, and that's the same diagram now as you're seeing here. Okay. So that's how you can add waypoints into an existing plan. You just key them into the scratch pad, select on top of the waypoint you want to push down. Now if we don't want Bigley in our flight plan, this is how you delete waypoints. You select the waypoint below and you pull it up over the top and drop it on top of the one you want to remove. And you could do any number of them, which gives you a clue. This is how you do direct to as well. So if you do TNT and then pull that back up over the top of Bigley. So if you watch here, this is important. On the navigation display, you've got what we've got programmed. Now we've got a modified route, we haven't executed it yet. So our new route is shown as a dotted line. And when we execute it, the dotted line becomes the solid route again. Okay, so that's how you add and remove waypoints. So should we go and get up and start flying, and then we can see a few more things. So let's go and remove the parking brake. There it goes. Roll out onto the runway. Should we put the head tracking on? It's quite late in the afternoon as the time I've got in the simulator, which makes it look quite pretty. So we'll get lined up. So it's like it's checking, checklist incomplete. So now we're on the runway, a new checklist has appeared for the runway, I guess, if I can find it. No, we've done all of them. Okay, so obviously getting ready for flight, we're on the runway, we need to go and put the landing lights on, go and put the strobes on, and we're good to go. So we'll go and ease the throttles forwards. So you can see the commanded amount of throttle and then where the engines have reached, which is quite good. So it's a long runway here, no need to overstress the engines. While we're flying along, we can go and pre-select. We need to put the flight directors on. And trying to steer at the same time. And we can pre-select LNAV and VNAV.
V1.
So rotating gently. We've used all the runway there because we didn't push it on the engines. Okay, so gear can come up. Trim the aeroplane, we could reduce that range, so keep a straight line for a while. So autopilot on, and we can just look after lifting the flaps slowly now. So we're taking the flaps back up to 1 degree. And the aeroplane's basically climbing out on its own now, and it will follow any restrictions that are in the standard instrument departure. So we've got some speed and some altitude restrictions. So until we reach some of the later waypoints, we're on page 2, remember. So if we press legs, you can see we have to stay. That's interesting, it says 258 knots. You'd expect it to say 250. Very odd. Anyway. You can see there's some altitude restrictions. So 4,000, above 3,000, 4,000, and that will carry on until 357C. So while we're doing that, we'll work through some of the things you can do in the FMC while we're waiting, and then we'll come back to some of the other things we can do a bit later on. Okay, so let's have a quick look through the autopilot mode buttons. But while we're doing this, then this will be a good time filler. So you've got the autopilot master switch, obviously, over here. You've got the flight directors. So there's two systems in the aircraft, really. There's the guidance system, which figures out what it needs to do to get to the next waypoint. And then there's the system that just commands the aircraft to do what it's been told. So the flight directors are the system. You can see the crosshairs appear on here when they are visible. So if you turn flight directors off, the autopilot will shut off. But flight directors are, these crosshairs indicate what it needs to happen to the ailerons and the elevators. Okay? So when you switch that on, these show up, and you can follow this with your own controls, even if you haven't got the autopilot on. So you can have the flight directors on without the autopilot. You can't do it the other way around. You can't have the autopilot on without the flight directors. Okay, so What buttons do we get that are important for you to know to get started with the aeroplane? Auto throttle, so arms up here on this 777, and there's the auto throttle arm switch. It switches on by default. As soon as you go full throttle on the runway, it will kick in. You've got LNAV, which is lateral navigation, so that means the aeroplane is going to steer along the route. You've got VNAV, which means the aircraft is going to climb or descend on its own. So at the moment it's going for 10,000 feet. We could go and set this. Notice we can go to thousands of feet at a time. We could go and set this to our cruise altitude. And it won't just blindly climb to 36,000 feet. It knows we've set it, but it knows also there are altitude restrictions in place on some of these legs from the standard instrument departure. So it will only climb when it's able to. So you'll see it do it when we go past D357C, which is the next waypoint. Once it gets past there, it can climb for flight level 289, or it's predicting by the time we get to TNT, we'll be at flight level 289. But it's actually aiming to get up to 360. Okay, so we'll be able to see that happen very soon. So that's LNAV and VNAV. Flight level change, if we were to just press that, it will ignore those restrictions and it will go straight for the target altitude at the best rate it can. But it will still obey the auto throttle. So if you go flight level change, it will show up a number here for the speed, and you can set your target airspeed. So obviously you need to start thinking at that point about what you're going to do, you know, and what the aeroplane's capable of. So in lateral and vertical navigation modes, or certainly in vertical navigation mode, you don't really need to think. The aeroplane's going to take into account your speed, the climb rate, and the target altitude to figure out the combination to do it safely. If you start using a selected altitude and vertical speed mode or level change, you need to start thinking about the speed you're traveling at and so on and so forth. Okay, so heading mode is obvious. You can just select a heading and then press select, and the aircraft will drop LNAV if you press select and fly to the heading you've told it to. Obviously if you then press LNAV again, it will fly back to the course. So let's zoom out on this a bit so we can see way out in front of us now. We've got the green banana showing up on the navigation display, which shows us the point at which it thinks we will get to our target altitude. Okay, so the throttles have opened up to 92%, which is max for cruise, I think. And we're on our way. Oh, that's actually not the throttles, that's the fan speeds. Okay. So I was going to show you some other bits and pieces. So those are the basic modes of the autopilot. There's a lot more we could say about this. There's like approach mode over here. I do mention it in the document and what it means, what the restrictions are. I also talk about vertical speed as well. Okay, so what have we covered so far and what haven't we? We've done adding new waypoints to the legs page. We've not added a custom waypoint yet. Okay, so let's have a look. So you can see if you show the waypoints on the map, and they only show up from 40 miles down, unfortunately. There's lots of them, but there might not be one exactly where you want it to be, or where you need it to be. So if we turn waypoints back off and increase this range, so we can see TNT out ahead of us on the navigation display. How could we put another waypoint in that doesn't exist? What we have to do is type in the code for the waypoint into the scratch pad. So down here, TNT. Then we type in 3 digits to represent the heading away from TNT of the point we actually want to fly to. So say if we said, bearing in mind that's 0 degrees, look, from the compass rose. So say if we said 30 degrees from TNT, so that would be 0, 3, 0. So we've got TNT, 30 degrees, then a slash, and then the distance from TNT. So we'll say 20 miles. Okay, so there's our reference for a location in space. And we'll put it in on top of AGPED. Okay, so watch what happens here and watch what happens here. I'm going to drop TNT 030 20 miles on top of AGPED. So align at 30 degrees from TNT for 20 miles and it makes a new waypoint called TNT01. Notice it's only going to it at the moment. That's because there's a discontinuity, because it always does that when you add a waypoint. If we close that discontinuity up, it's actually going to show the projected route if we were to do this. So let's do it. Execute. And it's even gone and reworked out after a second or two the projected top of climb. Okay. So let's see about removing that waypoint back out. So say we don't want it. So again, remember, we select a waypoint below and we pull it over the top and execute. And it puts us back to what we had before. Okay, so that's how you can make custom waypoints. You just need an existing reference waypoint and it doesn't even have to be on your route. So if we go and find one, so we're flying out towards, we're going to remove that from our example, delete that one. So we're flying along our route towards TNT. Let's find another one that's slightly off the route. There's one over here called Upduck. Okay, so we'll say we want to go 30 miles west of Upduck, for example. So we'll go Upduck. I've spelled that right, haven't I? Yeah, Upduck. We want to go west, so 270 and 30 miles. Okay, so let's see what happens if we put that in front of AGPED. So there's the projected line from TNT would be to over there. So obviously we would need to put this in front of TNT, so we've done that wrong. Yeah, so we'll just erase that change. So let's try that again. So up. Duck 0, oh no, we don't want 0, we want 270. Let's make it more pronounced, 50 miles. And we'll put it in front of TNT. So we'll say, actually, we want to go left and then back to TNT. So if we were to do that, it's going to go over there, then back to TNT. So let's try it. Execute. Look at the aeroplane. It's immediately turning left. So what if we change our mind and we actually want to go direct to TNT now? We don't want to go to Upduck after all. So this is how you do a direct to. You pull up the waypoint you want to the top of the list of links. So we select TNT and put it at the top and just execute. And the airplane will start banking right and go back towards TNT. Yeah? And it doesn't even have to be a waypoint that's on here. You could insert a waypoint as your first waypoint and then tidy up afterwards. And that's how you do direct twos in a Boeing. Okay, so we've done removing legs. We've done direct twos now because that we've shown the theory of how you do that. We're going to do a beam next, which I think is really cool. So we're approaching TNT. What if we wanted to find a waypoint on our route that's near East Midlands Airport? Okay, so we can see some other waypoints in the neighbourhood, but there are none really close to the line, are there? But there's one over here called Elvos. It's a nice name that we could use. What if we could project and have a waypoint put in next to Elvos? That would be useful to us, wouldn't it? So if we type in ELVOS, and we're not going to put it in the legs page, we're going to go to the fixes page. We type in Elvos, we select fix, so it's highlighting it on the map. Let's zoom in so we can see this really closely. So we're coming towards Elvos. We click abeam, and what it does is it works out the point at which of our closest approach to Elvos. So there it is, 45 degrees and 6.1 miles away from Elvos is our closest approach. So if I select that, it puts it in the scratch pad in the format we've already seen. Then if we go to legs and drop that in front of TNT, that's where it's going to put it. So it's not perfectly accurate, it's within 1 decimal place. And then if we close up the discontinuity and execute, we've now got that waypoint at closest approach to Elvos. And that's called an abeam waypoint. Okay, so we've essentially used the fix page as a calculator. Okay, the next one's a bit more fun. We are going to start drawing on the flight plan. What if we wanted a circle to be drawn around TNT? For whatever reason, so we could see when we're getting close to it. We go and click on, let's get both of these pages in view, so we can see the navigation screen and we can see the FMC. We click on the fixes page. We don't need Elvos on here anymore, so we can erase the fix. Notice you can have 4 fixes on the go at any one time. So we're going to type in TNT as our reference waypoint for doing this, and it doesn't have to be on your plan. You could type in anything, an airport or any waypoint nearby. But for our purposes, we'll just put TNT in because we can see it coming. So TNT, and now we remember there were multiple TNTs, but it's going to favour the one that's on our flight plan. Okay. So we get this table of bearings and distances. What does it mean? If we just type in a bearing from TNT, say at 90 degrees, so 0, we key in 090 and drop it on a bearing distance line on the TNT fix page. We get a 90-degree line drawn across the map from TNT. You can do these lines on any waypoints anywhere, and then they'll appear in the navigation display. So you could do another one at, say, 60 degrees. So, oh, sorry, we have to put 060, otherwise it will complain. You have to put the bearings in as 3 digits. So we'll put that one in. We've got now a 60-degree line and a 90-degree line. Instead of a 90-degree line, what if we wanted a radius drawn around TNT of, say, 20 nautical miles? What we can do is say /20. And if we put that over the top of the 90-degree one, the 90-degree one will vanish and a circle will appear. Oh no, it's added it to it because we'd only given it the distance. I forgot it has that trick. You can add these things together. Yeah, so we could do a 10 mile on the 60. So if we go /10 and put it over the top of the 60, we'll get 2 radius rings and 2 vectors. So the practical applications of this are many. So if you're trying to get a visualization of a funnel, you're trying to come down through hills for safety purposes, or when you're flying to a destination. So a really good example, if I just erase these, so there's nothing on the map anymore, we're going to type in the airport we're going to, so EGPH, we're going to Edinburgh, put it in as the fix, and say we actually want a circle around Edinburgh of 100 miles, because then we'll know when to start thinking about descending. So /100, drop it on, and obviously it doesn't show, so but we increase our range on the navigation display. There's the, and you can see top of descent is just inside that 100-mile range. But just as a thumb in the air, I want to know when we get to 100 miles away as the crow flies, because we need to start thinking about doing things. Okay, so drawing radiuses and vectors, we've just seen that in the FMC, and it's all covered in the document, step by step, how to do it. Okay, so what if we wanted to fly an offset from the route we're on? So let's go and zoom in. We can see we're back to a 40-mile range here. Let's go back down to a 20-mile range even. So we're just approaching TNT. Yeah, let's put it back to 40 so you can see this easily. What if we want to fly along and we find out there's some more air traffic that's either we're approaching that is flying slower than us, maybe, that's on the same route as us, and we want to fly alongside it just to go, you know, to take avoiding action in a nice, neat way. how can we do that? So, what we do is go to the route page. We'll erase this fix first. And we'll go back to the route page. And we'll go to the first page of the route page. Or is it the next page? I can never remember how all of this works. So yeah, we've got an offset at the bottom right of the route page. So what you can type into the offset at the bottom right of the route page is on page 2 is L or R and then the number of miles. So say if we wanted to go to the right by 5 miles from the route we're on. So we go R5. Now watch this display very carefully when we do it. It shows a dotted line, but notice it's gone to modified route. So we can execute that. And the plane is going to bank right and fly alongside our route on a 5-mile offset. Okay? It will even understand bends in the route. So if we're probably too far away to see it do it. Yeah. If we don't want it to do that, all we have to do is type 0 into the offset and it will get rid of it. So if we execute that, the aeroplane will immediately start to bank left again to come back to the route we were on. Okay? So that's an offset route. So the last thing I want to look at before we get anywhere near Edinburgh are intercept courses. So let's go and put some extra waypoints into our route. So we can see we are flying along over the top of Sheffield and Leeds and going up the country. Let's go and put in some extra waypoints before we get to Agped. Here's one here, that pole 19 is on our way. So if we go and put this in on our map so we can see it. So let's go and do that in the flight plan. So we'll go legs and we'll put in POL19. We'll put it in front of Agped. Oh, it's not in its database. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, let's go look for a more traditional waypoint then. So remove that one. What could we put in? I'm just trying to think what we can do here to make this work. So we'll put L-end in. So we're going to type in L-end. And we'll go there first. Not in database. Really? It's just there. Okay, let's have a look for another one. Oh, well, we're too close to some of these to make it make sense. Pug, that will do. So clear. ULPUG. And we'll try that. Yeah, it's got it. Yeah, so we want to go to Ulpug. Execute. So it's trying to figure it out to get there, which is fine. So the reason I'm doing this will become obvious in a moment. We'll put another one in after it as well. So Ulpug's over here somewhere. Where did we? There it was. So we've got add Ulpug. So obviously we're here. So if we put another one in here and add custom waypoint, add a position, just to get an approximation of what's going on here. So then we'll put X-Hex in as well. I'm just setting this up to give you a really good example of what the interception waypoints do. EXHAX. And we'll put that in after Ulpug. And we'll close the discontinuity and execute. So you've now got this zigzaggy route we're going on, okay? And this sets us up to do what I want to show you. So what if we didn't want to do that after all? What if we actually wanted to go straight for AGPED? So if we select AGPED and pull it back up, it's giving us the projected route to get to AGPED, okay? And it's saying the intercept course would be 342 degrees into AGPED. So let's zoom out and you can see that. So there's that 342 degrees. But what if we wanted to come into AGPED at 350 degrees for whatever reason? Maybe we've been vectored by ATC. So the intercept down here, while you're looking at the modified plan with it projecting your route, you can manipulate the course. So I've just said, no, we want to come in 350 degrees to AGPED. Yeah, so if I execute that, everything vanishes. We're going straight for AGPED, but on a 350 degree radial to AGPED. So that's what an intercept course does. You can choose the course at which you are intercepting a waypoint. Does that make sense? I know it's quite a lot to take on board in one step, but hopefully that makes some sense. So when you are doing a direct to, for example, we could do another one. So say if we went to go for, AGPED's way up here, look. So let's say we wanted to go via Tupla instead. So we'll do one more. So T-U-P-L-A. Instead of going straight to AGPED, we're going to go to Tupla. Now, when we put Tupla in, it wants to go 21 degrees to Tupla. What if we wanted to do 15 degrees into Tupla? We'd have to zoom out to see it. In fact, it's not happy about us doing it. Look, oh look, insufficient fuel. So we've actually run out of chances to play around. The aeroplane's running out of fuel and we couldn't go all that way over there. Okay? So we'll just pull it back to AGPED and execute that. And it's quite happy now from where we are going back to AGPED. So we'll reduce the range back in. It's interesting, look, it's got stuck here. Oh, we've lost LNAV. That's why. We'll just re-engage LNAV, plane's rolling back, and it will go straight towards AGPED. So hopefully, yeah, there's a ton of stuff we've covered in the video this evening. So just to summarise, we've got airspeed low. You see, oh, that's because of just atmospheric conditions, I think. Speed brake isn't armed. That's not good. I'm just looking around. It's because we're doing all these tight manoeuvres, and at altitude, you can't get away with much. Anyway, just to summarise what we have covered, and if you look in the link in the notes of the video, you'll see the link to download the document that covers all of this. We have looked at the initial flight configuration. We've looked at autopilot modes. We've looked at adding new waypoints to the legs page. We've looked at adding new custom waypoints to the legs page. We've looked at removing waypoints from the legs page. We've looked at doing direct twos. We've looked at calculating abeam waypoints along our route, performing a gross check of the flight plan. We've done vectors and range rings on the navigation display. We've done flying at an offset to your planned course. And we've done flying an intercept course into a waypoint, so a course that we want. So we might even be able to do it on an existing waypoint, you know. So if we go AGPED and put it on top of AGPED, yeah, it won't let us. Look, that's the one thing. If you wanted to change your course, you're coming into AGPED, you can't just put it on top to do that with an intercept course, which is a bit of a shame. Anyway, hopefully you found that interesting. Obviously I'm not going to complete the whole flight because it'll be a bit boring to sit and watch me just, fly into Edinburgh for the nth time. But yeah, have a look in the notes of the video, and everything we've covered here is covered in the document that is linked in the notes. So I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching.